শুরু করতে পারো। Welcome to the first session of Dialogue with Rokun, if I may put it that way. I've known Rokun for several years now, but more intensely over last 1 year. Dr. Rokun Zaman has been in the academia for over 25 years, currently a faculty at North-South University. He has provided advisory services to government agencies in Bangladesh and multilateral lending and development agencies. Rokun's long engagement in applied science and perseverance in propagating knowledge and ideas in the spheres of the economy and business is worth appreciated. That takes us to today's topic, in a series of dialogues where the interviewer may keep changing, with Rokun Zaman remaining the person responsible to answer those questions. Today's interviewer is Sajjad Zohir, who has a background in economics but loves to tease out questions. For those into philosophy, I shall refer to Socratic method that got elucidated in Plato's dialogue. The difference is, in the present dialogue, I have little knowledge of the subject that Rokun is working on. So I will initiate with a simple question: if Rokun can elaborate on his ideas about ideas and knowledge, how they are related, and if there are other conceptual aspects that ought to be brought in to understand the relationship between ideas and knowledge. Rokun, to you first.
Thank you very much, Bhai. It is kind of you to find your time to participate in the discussion and let me speak. Knowledge is basically getting to know about the situation. And within the context of technology and innovation, it is about knowing about natural properties of objects. And knowledge itself doesn't help us to improve our quality of life or getting our job done better. Then we produce ideas from there. Then their ideas are used to develop different techniques, to develop different products, to develop different features of product, so that they contribute in our way of getting our different jobs done. And jobs could be from one place to another.
Rokun, let me intervene just to understand. You said knowledge, there is a process of acquiring knowledge, and there is knowledge. And then there is knowledge, then we talk about ideas. I'm trying to understand that if you're talking about knowledge, independent of everything, how do you specify knowledge?
It is about knowing information about affairs, and it could be natural affairs, it could be social affairs, it could be political affairs.
See, in economics, which borrowed ideas from, I'm saying borrowed ideas from physics, we talked about stocks and flows. Is knowledge a stock or a flow? Because you're talking about generating information, which possibly fits into knowledge. Is that knowledge we are referring to? Is it accumulated information or accumulated and filtered information? Just trying to understand when you use the term knowledge, not that I'm trying to push into too many aesthetic aspects, but we have to have a feel about, as an analytical category. I believe those are the two basic analytical categories you often use in your writings to illustrate things, to when you apply to the fields of economy, fields of computer science, or innovations and products. That's something I would like to get into later on. Will we say that the knowledge is kind of an accumulated stock of information which are filtered within some framework?
Okay, let me get into it. Usually knowledge is about knowing the underlying variables and the relationship of those among those variables, creating different situation or manifesting in different forms. We collect data, then we process those data to understand the relationship between variables, and that eventually becomes knowledge. So knowledge develops a predictable model of interpreting the unfolding phenomena and also predicting the likely future. That's the way I would define knowledge.
Yeah, the reason I posed that question, because historically, so I'm of the old age. So we used to talk about praxis, and that praxis, we talk about the cycle of moving from practice, actions to accumulation of information and then knowledge. So knowledge, as you said, it continuously builds on from the past and then accumulates with new experiences, meaning new information, I believe.
Okay.
So there is no big difference between current concept of knowledge with the old philosophical concept of praxis, where knowledge is kind of one in the cycle of in the epistemological theory. Okay, go ahead. So I understand what you mean by knowledge. Subsequently, when you're talking about, I think in your construct of knowledge, then information is a ingredient which is a part and parcel of knowledge building.
That's correct.
Should I treat it that way?
That's correct.
Okay. So, and there may be difference in methods of information or the kind of information you want to ask. That's one part which may be related later on, but I'm trying to now understand what the ideas, the concept of ideas, because ideas, again, colloquially, normally when we talk about it, we say, he has a good idea, or then you talk about innovative ideas. That means there must be some non-innovative ideas possibly. I don't know. I'm trying to understand in the analytical construct that you use, what is ideas?
That's a good point. Idea may have many connotations, and trying to give a comprehensive definition of idea may create significant controversy. So what I would do, I will attempt to explain it from an example or from a specific application, which may be generalized to comprehend the concept of idea. Usually what happens that based on the knowledge of the situation, we generate ideas of addressing a certain thing or getting our certain things done in a better way, and preferably at less costly way. Like an idea could be of reducing the emission of an automobile. So we develop the knowledge about the fuel, about its conversion mechanism. Then we develop idea of reducing emission in the process of burning fuel in extracting energy. So idea is a basically.
I'm again intervening. You said we develop ideas. So ideas, you develop ideas, but again you said there is knowledge, and then we get information, we ask new set of questions, and that's a part of the epistemological process where you raise new questions and then get the information, and then you build up the knowledge stock. But I thought that the ideas as an independent concept is something unique, which, sometimes in the political sphere, this concept was played around with, especially in the Chinese context. But in your construct, it seems that idea has an independent existence, independent of the process of knowledge building. Or am I wrong?
I would say idea is the next step of the knowledge building. Certain cases, what we do, we produce idea, but we do not have adequate knowledge to implement that. Then we go and enrich our knowledge to make the idea implementable. On the other hand, in certain cases, we produce enough knowledge which support the generation of idea to address our issue.
I'm now confused. I'm now confused just because, no, there's nothing, because anything that comes in new in terms of the packaging, as I said, Thomas Alva Edison had an idea in terms of the electric bulb, or the cockroach story that we hear about him around the table, and then rails, electricity, and the bulbs. Now, there are ideas, even Professor Yunus had an idea about the Grameen Bank kind of things, maybe borrowed from some other things. Now, is it like in the process of information generation, we into new ideas, or we generate ideas? there is another thing is we develop ideas. In your construct, normally I thought ideas is like, labor capital and other kind of things. It is a separate kind of resource, which is independent of the production process. This debate is, again, as I said, I was reading, since I had to face you today, I was reading few things yesterday, and then I realized that uh, there are similar concepts and there are debates over it historically, that where ideas come from. Is it in the same process of the process of knowledge, action, information collection, again knowledge, and then action, which is broadly called in the dialectical philosophy, broadly termed as praxis. But in your case, which also in the past, is there is an independent existence of idea, which doesn't always relate or come from practice, meaning come from actions. It can come from nowhere, kind of things. And because you talk about ideas in the construct, and you also talk about market of ideas. So the idea economy you referred to. So I'm trying to understand, is as an analytical category, should we consider ideas as an independent entity, or is it a product of a process which includes knowledge, information, and action, meaning production or whatever entrepreneurial roles that they play, and then therefrom you get ideas? Or is it a mix of both? I'm trying to understand what would be your definition of ideas.
Good point. Let's go to your one of the examples you referred to, that is Thomas Alva Edison. Thomas Alva Edison came up with the idea of producing light from electricity. So that idea didn't have a strong support of the knowledge. As a result, idea manifested in primitive form. So here idea came as a spontaneous creative outburst of the mind of Thomas Alva Edison. But in order to make that idea to serve the purpose meaningfully, then the knowledge was produced to add additional ideas and refine the initial idea. So I would say that idea may originate or often originate in absence of strong knowledge base, that creative outburst. But that knowledge base is required to fine tune and strengthen the idea. And the second thing is that in the process of producing the knowledge, also it supports the generation of complementary or additional ideas. So I think there are two ways. It's not just one way we get into the process of producing ideas. So there are two ways.
On the first part, when you're saying, see, I'm making it, the reason I'm saying is I have all these confusions, and I'm trying to understand your perception about ideas and knowledge. If we pick that point up regarding the knowledge, so currently we are facing COVID-19, and then at home, a lot of medicines are being poured through our throats. We have to swallow those things. The local, it reminds me of the narration Porish story. And this thing about something we are taking, but it doesn't necessarily come out or is aligned with the stock of knowledge that is quote unquote approved. Meaning, when you're referring to knowledge now, you're referring to a particular stock of knowledge. Some people would love to say scientific knowledge. And some people would say something legally approved. There are differences. Scientific knowledge may not always be legally approved because of interest. And in some cases, some things get approved without having really, robust basis. And so when you're referring to knowledge, are we talking about the union of all kinds of knowledge, like Ayurvedic or the Totka medicine that we have, historically Khonar Bachon kind of things that in Bengal we have been talking about? Do you mean the whole stock of knowledge, or you mean the legally approved stock of knowledge, or in your perception, some scientific knowledge?
I would say I am referring to scientific knowledge. That means where we have a very clear understanding about the relationship between underlying variables. It is not the hunch. It is the scientific knowledge what I'm referring to. And the scientific knowledge
And
may not be legally approved at this point in time for certain regulatory or political economy perspective.
so let's not push that further, because there is a gray area. We understand that that scientific knowledge commonly accepted, at least which can be explained with the accepted elements in science. And with that about knowledge, how do you now place ideas? You're saying that ideas may pop up which may not be in conformity with the existing knowledge, and therefore this may go through a phase of experimentation before it gets the accepted in the current stock of knowledge or adds values to the stock of knowledge. Do I understand it correctly?
That's right.
Okay. So ideas in some cases are actually output, kind of process generated output, in the sense that in the process of um, experimentations or actual real economy productions activities or delivery activities, you come up with new ideas. And that new idea may not always be accepted within the current stock of knowledge, and then it goes through a phase before it gets inducted and it enriches knowledge and the idea gets approved. That's the kind of thing you're putting up?
Yes, I think in general you are correct.
Okay. So now if we talk about, we have 3 or 4 items coming up. One is knowledge, ideas, there's information, and we roughly agree that information is an essential element in the accumulation of knowledge, and possibly also in the experimentation of ideas, finally to get endorsed by the existing stock of knowledge or get absorbed into the existing stock of knowledge. Is information is an innovation in this knowledge, ideas, information.
I couldn't hear
Are
you.
all ideas? Oh, I
Carry on.
said that we have the knowledge and ideas, and we understand that information is a, information gathering is a process which is a part in the cycle of knowledge accumulation. But ideas is something like traditionally the way we would be thinking is we collect information, we engage in certain practice, we get to know new things, and we also collect information in a systematic manner. These are processed in our upper chamber, and then we generate new ideas. That was the kind of things, which then we again take back into practice. Now we are recasting that whole thing and then saying that, well, there is knowledge, which is a stock, but gets accumulated over time, and ideas can come from within the process, ideas can come from outside the process, but ideas have to go through a phase of experimentations and struggle, both in the legal and the the market power structure, whatever there is, before it gets inducted into the system of knowledge that you're referring to. My question was, within that kind of conceptual frame, where does innovation come in?
Okay. Innovation, again, innovation may have many connotations, but the basic purpose of innovation it is to get our job done better, preferably at a less cost. So we produce ideas to produce basically different tools. It could come in a large system, or it could come a very small handy tool, which help us to get our job done. The job could be different types. The job could be how to send money to the recipient of the security or social security network, or the job could be just getting the disease identified or verified. So there are multiple types of jobs. Then we bring ideas into the mechanism of getting that job done better. And that's the idea of getting the job done better is basically the innovation. So innovation has some economic relationship. That is, it helps people to serve their purpose or to address their need in a better way and preferably at less costly way.
But isn't this, I mean, ideas, for ideas to get inducted into the existing system of knowledge with qualifications, isn't it necessary that it has to be innovative in your terminology, in the sense that
I think innovation and idea, and there is some kind of, it seems to be a difference between that. And let me tell, ideas are, not all ideas are innovations with respect to certain definition, because often innovation refers to getting an idea to the market at profit. Until and unless we succeed in creating the profitable revenue out of an idea, often it is not considered as innovation in certain school of thoughts, in certain doctrines. And that is the way we can make a differentiation between ideas and innovation. We may have a large stock of ideas, but not all of those ideas are innovations. But every innovation is the outcome of an idea. That's the way probably I would say.
No, that's well taken, which is basically, innovative ideas. The very term that we use is basically, it is some ideas are innovative, some ideas are not. What I was, is that, do you agree with that? That
I would
ideas,
agree with that. I would agree with that if we accept the definition of innovation as this, that it is a process of taking an idea to the market in producing profitable revenue. Then you're very much
so
correct.
there is a process, but innovation it's called innovation only when the ideas pass through a test.
Pass through a test in the market and succeeds to produce profitable revenue.
Right. That's one way of, but this is what I said in terms of saying that, well, a lot of ideas may be out there, but some ideas finally get a system of knowledge existing, which we discussed before regarding what is knowledge, and we drive in some way, which is subjective. We took that into account, that there is this stock of knowledge, and there are ideas which can be generated from within the process, and it can come from outside the process. But
yes,
in both cases, the ideas for getting accepted within the stock of knowledge, it has to be innovative. Otherwise, it cannot get actually inducted into that
that's correct.
stock of knowledge. Okay. Now, I'll take a step back, and this is my last part in terms of questioning you. Is see, we talk about ideas, and I recall reading about Surya Sen in Bangla's history, a fight against British, where he used to target a certain age group for sacrifice and for those kind of things. Then there are notions that certain age groups should be targeted for more ideas. This is one kind of things. If idea generation has any kind of correlates which have significant relationships with some other variables that you can think of. A second set of question is, which relates to when we talk about all this creativity, and then in the education front, we talk about Srijanshilata in Bengali, which is again creative education system. And in my way, I raise the issue of the ability to raise questions, and then the questions have to be relevant, of course. Now, in terms of idea, we talk about idea economy. Say one part is if it can pass through the test, get inducted in the knowledge system. But where do ideas come from? I mean, when we think about these ideas, we agreed that one part is in the process. So we go through a production process and marketing process. There are few new ideas because you confront some problems, you raise the questions within the system, and then people come up with new ideas to solve those problems. So problem solving approach to generation of ideas, and then you go for implementation. There is this independent thing which also comes from outside the process, as we agreed. And the question is, are there some other things, when you talk about ecosystem, are there certain other things that have to be nurtured in order to ensure better supply of ideas? And are they at all related to this whole issue of creativity, ability to raise questions, or should the society investment on something beyond the usual production process or marketing process or the business processes? Should the society invest anywhere else to enrich the ability to generate ideas? Could I get the question through?
I think you have asked a series of questions, and many of them I have already I have forgotten, perhaps. So let me
Now
simplify.
let me ask you one question.
Please do.
Is question is the in order to, because you're thinking ideas as an independent entity, and we talk about skills or some other kind of thing, then you try to ensure that the supply of such things can increase in certain ways if we invest in certain areas. Similarly, if you think that idea is a critical element in the growth of the economy and society, then how do you, you know, how do you increase the supply of ideas, quote unquote?
Okay, good. Uh, Economy is a very broad thing, but let's take a very simple thing, that is production and consumptions. Consumers are looking for always better products at lower price, and producers are looking for selling more products at lower cost so that they can make more profit. Now, how can these two conflicting variables be addressed? That is better product at lower cost. And that is the place idea comes in. That means idea needs to be integrated to the product and the process so that the products could be produced of higher quality, consuming less resources. And now the question is, why do we need many actors in the process of producing ideas? The reason is that when the producers compete in the market to profit from idea, then there is a competition of imitating and improving those ideas. So competition force will respond to the initial idea. And that is a place the innovators need a flow of ideas to rapidly respond to the competition force. And in order to get that flow of ideas, the innovators need supports from different actors of the society, including academic systems, academic research, and other research institutions, and regulatory and other processes which are in place. So if those actors do not work as a system to strengthen the flow of idea, even the innovator pursuing a great idea may not end up into sustained profitable path creation. As a result, the process of benefiting of idea will slow down, and eventually it will undermine our capacity of benefiting from ideas to drive our
Can I rephrase your
please.
things in terms of my understanding? What you're saying is, in any particular real world process, in order to solve a problem, let it be anything. In order to solve a problem, you have to come up with an idea, and this idea may not always be generated from within the system. That's something we have agreed actually, that there is one element which can be generated and addressed within the system, and then there are others ideas which come from outside. Even to solve a problem within, you may need ideas from outside the narrow production system or delivery system or business system. Now that part is understood. What you then go into is, in order to do that, there are two things you mentioned. You need a lot of factors, which somehow in the traditional economics textbooks we would say more competition, and I would qualify that with healthy competition, regulated competition. So competition of multiple actors can then filter through and solve those problems in meaningful ways. That's the basic thing you're saying. And what I was asking is this ability to generate ideas, because the ideas are generated by human beings. So you're talking about some attribute in human beings which enable better ideas to be generated out of them. So you or me or some other people can idle their life away, but can also contribute by generating ideas which can go into developing systems, developing or making production systems more efficient, or make the overall social system more efficient in contributing to us better livelihood or better human quality of life. Now, I was asking the question is, in terms of increasing the supply of such ideas, what are the things that a society has to look into? Because
so please stay here. Otherwise I may lose
okay.
The track of in addressing your question. First thing, society should increase the capacity of asking question about the status quo, the status quo of products, status quo of process, status quo of the system. That why is it like this? Why are different things are there in this form? What could be the reorientation of them? What could be the additional new things? How or what could be the change of the existing things so that we can get our job done better, as I'm referring to again and again. That means the first capability the society should focus on raising the question about the status quo. That means our students, our academics, and many actors of the society should start nurturing the capability that to raising the question and bringing alternatives to the existing things. And that might be, you may call about the creativity. That may be the tendency of the students asking questions about the existing knowledge base. And if that questioning capability, if we do not create, and not only the questioning capability, then the process of generating additional knowledge, generating additional ideas to counter that status quo, then that capacity should be developed in the society. These two are vital. Then the third one is that how to leverage that questioning capability, that new knowledge generation capability to bring changes or to improve the current situations.
So on that part, I'll not proceed any further. At least today's discussion has actually gone a long way. We have converged to a few things. At least my understanding now is Will Rokon was not actually bringing ideas as in completely independent of the process part. There is knowledge which goes through continuous enrichment, but ideas come in as an element both from within and outside, which has to go through some test before getting termed as innovative ideas once it gets inducted into the new further enriched knowledge system. So with that, actually, I mean, I would love to get into the issue of ideas, the productivity, growth, those kind of things. But unless we get the analytical categories in place, we cannot actually proceed further. Is there anything I am missing? Because as I said, this is knowledge, the information comes in, then the ideas within and outside, but there has to be people continuously getting engaged into this kind of things. Identifying problem is what you first said in terms of questioning the status quo. So the status quo has some problems, and one has to be able to identify problems and then address how to solve those problems. And that's how new ideas are generated. And then you push into some market where you struggle with the regulated knowledge stock, which may be controlled by powers. And then you have to get into that system of knowledge. And that's another big struggle people talk about, especially when it comes to pharmaceuticals and medicines, and something that we are observing now. This you can, anyway, thank you, listeners. This has been my first experience, so don't be too harsh on the anchor, but we'll continue to harass the main person and tease out the knowledge that he has and the ideas about his ideas in the broader framework of analyzing this market of knowledge economy, idea economy, and how those are related to just not economic growth, but also the social development. Because I think it applies in all spheres, from family to, because knowledge is too vast a thing and it can encompass anything and everything almost. So in that sense, idea is an essential element, if I may now coin in my own way, an essential element of enriching that stock of knowledge. Would you agree with that? That's
That's
the
right.
last question. Good.
Of course, it is a natural stock of human beings because human beings by nature, they are creative. They keep producing ideas and we produce ideas every day and numerous of them. Now the question is that what is its relationship to economic growth in creating economic prosperity? That is what you are referring to at the last part of your summation. And certainly that is a place we need to have a very careful investigative approach to figure out what is its nature and how to leverage it.
But I would not associate with the number of people and ideas, because in that case, Bangladesh would have the largest number of ideas with too many people.
Good point. That's a very good point, that the stock of ideas does not have a natural correlation to economic growth. Even a very few people could succeed in producing ideas, even very few ideas, to leading to a very large economic success story.
Right. And not always ideas are ingrained by birth. Ideas are also,
not necessarily true.
as we agreed, is the
necessarily,
product of a process also.
not necessarily true.
But as I now find kind of a reconciled in my head, I can see the past, the political philosophers starting off from the Greeks, and then you hear about all these Germans and Marxians, and then into the Maoist philosophy in terms of praxis. And you know, of the recent times, there is one Dr. Salimullah Khan who had actually an organization called Praxis, and these are in my university days. And there are a lot of debates in the philosophical front on how knowledge is built, how ideas come, how some ideas do not carry through, whereas some other, I mean, there may be ideas which are very appropriate, very quote unquote scientific, but are not acceptable in the current period. And they have withered out, resurfaced again in some later years. And so there has to years to get inducted into the system, you need an agency who has an interest to push that idea, get that inducted into the system, and make it what you said, profitable, efficient, and cost effective, whatever term you use. Some agency has to be out there to own those ideas and carry it through. And that applies not just in the business world, but also in the political and social spheres, at home and within the larger community. Thank you very much. And now we can stop for this session. The next one, obviously, will have to be picked up. It can be actually discussing the relationship between the ideas and productivity. But before that, each of us has to reflect to figure out what did we arrive at. And maybe we'll get another writing from Dr. Rokonuzaman in the dailies or in the TIP in Facebook, so that we can identify the steps ahead. Thank you, Rokon.
Thank you, listener, and thank you, Sajjad Bhai, for having interest and your patient hearing. Thank you very much.